Thomas Sankara stood face to face with President Joe Biden in what would become the most shocking moment in modern political history. It wasn't just the setting, a highly publicized global summit in Geneva, nor the media frenzy that followed. It was the unimaginable fact that Sankara, long believed to be dead, stood alive and defiant, challenging the President of the United States in front of a stunned world. The hall had been filled with anticipation. Leaders from around the globe were in attendance, gathered under the pretense of discussing economic development and international cooperation. Cameras panned across rows of dignitaries, while world news outlets broadcast the event live. President Biden had just begun his keynote speech, emphasizing America's renewed commitment to global stability, when the energy in the room shifted. A voice, calm but unwavering, cut through the official language and diplomatic formalities. "You have no power here." The hall fell into a heavy silence. Security glanced toward the back of the room. Whispers began to swell, and then, like a ghost materializing from memory and myth, Thomas Sankara appeared. Dressed in his iconic green military uniform and red beret, his presence commanded the room instantly. His walk was measured, but every step carried the weight of history. This could not be. Sankara had been assassinated in 1987. His death was tragic, wrapped in betrayal and Western interference. And yet here he was, returning not as a symbol or a statue, but as a living man. Biden paused, unsure if this was a stunt, a protest, or something far more serious. The crowd, frozen in disbelief, stared as Sankara approached the stage. The cameras zoomed in. Social media exploded. World leaders looked to one another for confirmation, but no one could explain it. Sankara mounted the stage without permission, without fear. "Mr. President," he began, staring directly at Biden, "your words today speak of partnership, of peace and of progress, but your actions, your deals, and your policies are rooted in the same old control. You dress imperialism in diplomacy. I've seen it before." The hall was breathless. Biden, recovering his composure, responded, "Africa is a vital partner to the United States. We believe in mutual respect and shared prosperity." Sankara interrupted. "Then why are your companies still extracting our resources without fair compensation? Why are your military bases expanding across our continent under the guise of protection? And why is it that every time an African nation rises to chart its own path, it faces sanctions, destabilization, or regime change?" Every word struck like thunder. Sankara's voice wasn't just loud, it carried the burden of generations. Biden tried to counter. "We offer support, not control. Our aid is meant to uplift, not to dominate." Sankara laughed bitterly. "You call it aid, but it is debt. You call it support, but it is surveillance. What you offer is not freedom, it is managed dependency. And I did not rise from the grave to watch my people fall again." Gasps rippled through the audience. Phones were up, streams were live. Across the world, people watched, stunned, confused, and inspired. Sankara turned to the audience. "Let me speak plainly. I was killed for believing Africa could be truly independent. I was betrayed by my own, but that betrayal was fed by external hands. And even in death, I watched as your governments praised democracy while propping up tyrants." He pointed toward the gathered leaders. You talk of climate, yet your corporations pillage our forests. You speak of peace, yet your weapons fuel our wars." Biden, visibly irritated, leaned into the microphone. "If you truly want peace, you don't start it by storming a summit." Sankara responded, without blinking. "Sometimes peace requires breaking silence, and your silence has been deafening." For over 2 hours, the summit turned into a global reckoning. Sankara refused to leave the stage. Delegates from several African nations rose to support him. Officials from Mali, Niger, Guinea, and even some voices from South Africa began nodding. Some even stood in solidarity. He read aloud from a document, a new strategic partnership the U.S. was proposing for West African nations. The agreement promised aid, technology, and security training. But buried in the fine print were clauses of conditional access to mining rights, long-term base agreements, and data-sharing policies favoring Western intelligence agencies. He dropped the document at Biden's feet. "This is not a partnership. This is modern colonialism in PDF format. Burkina Faso rejects it, and so should every free African nation." Chants began to rise from the crowd. "Africa is not for sale! Africa is not for sale!" The summit organizers, panicking, tried to end the broadcast, but the feed had already been duplicated and streamed by thousands of independent journalists and activists online. It was too late. The message had already gone global. Outside the summit, protesters gathered. Some had come to protest economic inequality, others to call for climate justice. But now they had a face, a voice, and a rallying cry. That night, cities across Africa erupted, not in violence, but in celebration. In Ouagadougou, people filled the streets chanting Sankara's name. In Dakar, murals of him reappeared overnight. In Nairobi, university students held teach-ins on Pan-Africanism. Across the diaspora, his words were replayed, remixed into songs, printed on banners. The White House issued a statement the next morning. "The United States respects the voices of all participants in global dialogue, but we reaffirm our commitment to structured and responsible partnerships." It rang hollow. Back in Geneva, Sankara held a spontaneous press conference. With no teleprompter, no advisors, he spoke directly to the people of the world. "You cannot kill ideas. You can assassinate a man, but you cannot assassinate a dream. The world told Africa to stay quiet. I say, speak. The world told us to obey. I say, rise. They told us to wait. I say the time is now." When asked where he had been, Sankara simply smiled. Dead, watching, waiting. The implications were massive. Was this truly Thomas Sankara? A man resurrected? A clone? A double? Or was this moment larger than biology? A symbol manifesting when the world needed him most? For many, the answer didn't matter. In the weeks that followed, several African nations began renegotiating their foreign agreements. Grassroots movements sprang up, demanding local ownership of resources and public auditing of foreign debt. In the UN, a new bloc of African nations pushed forward a resolution for the removal of all foreign military bases on the continent within 10 years. The world had changed, and it began with a single phrase: "You have no power here." It wasn't a threat, it was a reckoning. And it came not from a new power, but from a forgotten voice, reclaiming the future.